You know, when I was growing up, they used to say defense wins championships. And I think this year, that was true. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs and what they did. That defense held it down until they got to the playoffs, and then Pat Mahomes says, I got it from here. But you need a defense to have a chance every single week, and I think that's what the Seahawks are trying to do, Curtis. I would ask you a hypothetical, but you already know the answer to this. If I told you the most expensive defensive line groups in 2024 based on cap hit, and I said the 49ers at 1, you probably believe it.
That makes sense. Bosa, Hargrave, others.
The Bengals at 2 with Henderson over there.
Hendrickson, yeah.
The Commanders at 3. Chase is gone. Montez Sweat is still there, right?
Yes.
Okay. The Raiders at 4, I think that'd be a bit of a surprise. Well, Max Crosby is over there. Mm-hmm. And then the Seahawks come in at number 5. Now, a lot of this has to do with them signing Big Cat,
right?
Jay Reed, and I guess the rookie and Byron Murphy.
Dre Jones.
Uchenna
Nwosu as well.
Boye Mafe. Yeah. When you look at this group, before you saw this number, would you have put them in the top 5 when it comes to most expensive defensive lines?
I don't think I would have, but then once I saw this stat, which was tweeted out by a Twitter account at NFL_stats, I don't know if it's an official stat like account, but hey, it makes sense then when you kind of put the tail of the tape together that, yeah, it is. There's a ton of investment made in this defensive line, more so than we've seen in years past, and it kind of goes opposite of how Pete Carroll used to fill out this roster. He would kind of go cheap on the defensive line and offensive line, go with a lot of first and second year players, some minimal additions in free agency, what have you, and he would spend a lot more building up that secondary. Now, when that formula worked, it worked wonders because you had a generational secondary, and then you also got tons of production out of guys like Red Bryant and Chris Clemens. Clemens was brought over in a trade with the Eagles and was kind of a resurrection in this defense. Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill were brought in on one-year deals right away. But I look at the defensive line right now, and, I mean, look, the 49ers are a great team. They won the NFC last year. The Bengals have been a very competitive team with Joe Burrow. I mean, they've been the biggest competition really to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs over the course of the last couple of years. They made it to back-to-back AFC Championship games in 21 and 22. Didn't get there this year because Burrow had the injuries. The Commanders and Raiders, though, I mean, you look at the investments that they've made on the defensive line. Both those teams were picking at the top of the first round this year. So you've got 2 really good examples of defensive line investments that the 49ers and Bengals have made, and 2 bad examples in the Commanders and Raiders. But I do think that if this Seahawks team is going to fix their biggest issue, which is stopping the run and making sure that they get the ball back on third down and they just don't get gashed the way that they do, you're going to have to make investments on that defensive line, and they've done so. It's not just the Leonard Williams, Dre Jones, Uchenna Nwosu free agency moves. It's the first-round pick of Byron Murphy, too.
Yep. And Cam Young, still waiting to see what he does over there. You mentioned that Pete Carroll kind of did it reverse. Built up the back end and brought in guys on the defensive line. I think with the corner situation you have here, you multiply that with that defensive line. Still got to see what the linebackers can do. I see what Mike McDonald is doing, and we know how important that defensive line was for him over in Baltimore, and he talks about how it's important as overall.
Yeah, it's incredibly important. I wouldn't say that was a driving, force down the decision. It's just an opportunity to add an awesome guy and a great player. So, but absolutely, I mean, in 2 minutes, you're going to want to have guys fresh and ready to rock, and then, it's not a short season. You need guys that can get after it in the trenches for sure. So.
Correction, Montez Sweat is with the Bears now. So the Commanders got rid of Sweat and Chase Young.
Yeah, they got Jonathan Allen, I think.
Jonathan Allen, there you go. Here's the thing. That rotation on the defensive line is crucial. There isn't a position in football that rotates as much as a defensive line. The O-line stays consistent. Receivers, you might throw in a fourth or fifth receiver depending on the situation. In the secondary, you'll bring in a nickel. But you can literally have 5 to 8 players play on that defensive line, and you're keeping them fresh, you're rotating them in. Down and distance will determine which guy is in. So he understands the importance, obviously. He's a defensive coordinator and head coach in the league, but I love the investment in this position. I'm really excited, obviously, about Byron Murphy. This guy, I don't know, do we have this on the show today? He was disrespected a little bit.
Yeah, we got that coming up in NFL headlines.
Yeah, NFL headlines, we're going to talk about the disrespect from Byron Murphy. But, yeah, it starts with the big boys up front. You control the line of scrimmage. You can't control the game. Last year, the Hawks did a decent job when it comes to getting after the quarterback. I believe they were top 5 or 10 in the league when it comes to sacks. A sneaky stat for these guys because you talk about that defensive line. You talk about them stopping a run. So you automatically correlate that with sacks and say there's no way these guys are one of the league leaders when it comes to sacks. And they finished, top 10 or right outside the top 10 with 47 sacks. So if you can keep that pressure on the quarterback, stop the run, it helps the backers, helps the back end. I like the way he's building this defense.
I do too, and I think it's kind of overdue as well. We've seen this defense kind of come up with the same results, different parts over the last few years. Why not change it up? Like, let's not, there's a different formula out there that I think this defense should be doing, and I think investing this much into your defensive line is a big way in getting to that different outcome that you've been so desperately searching for, so much so that you were willing to let go the most successful head coach in franchise history in order to find better success on that side of the ball. That side of the ball has been the biggest reason why I think the Seahawks haven't been able to reach their fullest potential in quite some time, is because even when they were winning, even when they won the division in 2020, the defense still was not up to speed, and we saw it get gashed in that wild card game against the Rams. Granted, Russell Wilson's pick 6 early on in that game did not help out at all, and they looked super disjointed in that game, but the defense did nothing to stop Matthew Stafford in that Rams offense. Or it was, no, it wasn't Stafford. I think it was still Goff at that point. It was Goff and
it was
John Wofford.
Yeah. Wofford, goodness, where's Wofford at these days? Hopefully, he's still in the league, man. He was a wiry little quarterback back there.